The best agents don't just have a bigger context window, they have a file system. Today, I'm going to show you what that means. This video is a paid partnership with Mastra. They're an open source framework for building AI agents with TypeScript. Link is in the description below. In my last video, I built a personal AI assistant with Mastra. In it, I walk you through setting up an agent that responds to cal.com webhooks to fire off research for whoever booked the call, and it drops a briefing into Slack. It worked, but it has a ceiling. We gave it a conversational memory, so it remembers things that were said in Slack, in our thread, it learns my preferences, and it picks up context mid-conversation, and that all works great. The thing that it lacks is institutional knowledge, though. Things like meeting notes that are taken during calls, or other notes like that. We want to be able to use these notes to help build meeting prep moving forward, and today we're going to solve that. Tools like Claude Code don't just load your entire code base into context. That would blow through your entire context window on a real project. Instead, it greps and searches for files and loads them in one at a time as they're needed. Most people reach for bigger context windows, but that will only go so far. What we actually need is to give the agent tools that it can use to find the content that it needs when it needs it. So the question is, how do we do that? Mastra Workspaces give your agents a persistent environment to work in. It's going to give your agent three things. The first is a file system where the agent can read and write and organize files. The next is a sandbox where it can actually execute commands, write code, things like that. And lastly is support for agent skills. These are the structured instruction packages that tell agents how to do specific jobs. Mastra supports multiple providers for all of these: the local file system, Amazon S3, Google Cloud Storage, and more. In today's video, we're going to focus on the local file system for everything. Now let's go ahead and update our meeting assistant from the previous video. The first thing we need to do is update our Mastra meeting assistant to include support for workspaces. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and import a few things. So to start, we're going to import Workspace, local file system, and local sandbox from Mastra core Workspace. Next, we're going to import the embed v3 from Mastra core vector. We're going to use that for enabling vector search across our documents inside of the workspace. Then we're going to install resolve and dir name, as well as filed URL to path. That's to set up our configuration. With those in hand, we can now go ahead and configure the directory for where we're going to set up our workspace. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to set up the workspace inside of the folder for my project. So right in the root of the project itself. Next, we're going to go ahead and set up the vector store. This is what we're going to use to enable the vector search across the documents, and we are letting it use either the process.m.database URL or resolving to the workspace path in a workspace.db. Next on line 19 is where we actually instantiate and configure our workspace. So the first thing we're going to do is give it an ID. So for this one, we're calling it Meeting Assistant. The next thing we do is specify the file system that we're providing it. In this case, we're using a local file system with the base path being set to the workspace, with the base path set to the workspace path that we configured earlier. Again, there are different types of file systems that you can use, such as AWS S3, Google Cloud, or others. The next on the list is the sandbox. This is where you can configure access to scripting tools and executing code in a sandbox environment. In this case, we're going to use the same workspace path there as well. Line 23, we configure skills. So this is where we can configure a path where we can provide agent skills for the agent to be able to use. So we're going to go ahead and set that up as well. And then the next few lines are all about our being able to search the documents. So we are setting up a hybrid search combined between BM25 for full text search and then a vector store for semantic search. So the semantic search is being provided by the workspace vector store that we set up earlier. And then we have to specify an embedder. In this case, we're going to use the same embedder that we used for our memory system in the last video, which is using fast embed. This takes an async function, which takes in some text that you then return the embedding from. Lastly, on line 30, we set up auto index paths. So what's going to happen here is when we init the workspace later, it will automatically go through and index all the paths. It will automatically index all the files within this path. So here we're telling it to auto index everything inside of the vault, which we're going to bring into the workspace. The next thing we need to do is configure the workspace vector store and create the index for it to store everything. We're going to go ahead and name it Meeting Assistant Search. We're setting the dimension to 384 because that is what fast embed uses, and we're using the metric cosine. Mastra supports different scopes for workspaces. You can either define a global workspace, which is shared across all of your agents, or you can specify at the agent level for agent-specific workspaces. In this case, we're going to go ahead and set the agent level workspace here. Now, the next thing I want to do is walk through a skill that we've prepared for these purposes. This skill is used for meeting prep. So we're going to take what was lightly defined inside of the agent system prompt and provide a workflow for whenever it does research for a meeting brief. Here we have the agent skill. As you can see, the front matter at the top is the basic name, which is meeting prep, and a description, research and prepare a brief for an upcoming meeting. And then we have a workflow broken up into different steps. So the first step is we're now instructing it to search the vault for existing content. So it's going to go ahead and search for the contact by name, company, and email. We're telling it to use hybrid search so that it can search on matching meeting notes, contact profiles, and project files. Then we're going to look for any prior meeting briefs, call notes, or references to the person. Now for step 2, it's going to review the existing context. So read through the matching files found in the vault, extract any key details, things like role, company, past conversations, and note any action items or follow-ups from the previous meetings. Then the next step is to fill any gaps. So if we didn't find anyone or we just want to find some more up-to-date information, it will go ahead and do some web search for finding additional information. Now, we explicitly tell it to only find information that's not already in the vault, so we don't want to duplicate our research efforts. Next, we specify the template on how to generate the meeting brief. So we define some various sections, including who it is, the context, key talking points, open threads, and quick research. Now, if this was a larger skill, we might move this into a reference file instead as a template, but because this is a pretty small skill, we can just go ahead and embed it in the skill.md itself. Lastly, we have instructions on where to save the research and to return it back to the user. So now when the agent prepares a meeting brief, it can actually look through previous notes, other research that it's done, anything else that I've talked about, and compile that as part of its research brief, allowing it to have richer context moving forward. So now let's go back to the meeting assistant. We've updated the instructions to be a little bit more brief. We've told it that it now has access to the Obsidian Vault of Notes. We're telling it to prepare for the meeting using the meeting prep skill. And then we have the original instructions on how to communicate. All the other pieces are now encapsulated inside of the agent skill, so we don't necessarily need to repeat them anymore. So let's go ahead and save this. And if we go to Slack, go ahead and ping my meeting assistant and ask what my last meeting was with Sarah. So here it's going to go ahead and use the vault to look up any notes that it's found to bring up information about her. So we have a reply. Let's take a look. And so we can see here that it's going to search for your notes. And it found the full meeting notes from the last meeting. It was on March 7th for 45 minutes. Key talking points were their current setup, the main point, the support chatbot can't remember previous conversations, some decisions made, and things like that. So we can see here that the agent had full access to the vault that I have. So now let's ask the meeting agent to capture a new note. I just finished meeting with Sarah. Help me track some notes from the meeting. We discussed phase 2 deliverables. So here's asking me some questions. I'll help you capture notes from your meeting. Let me ask you, when was the meeting? Let's give it the date. Date was 2026, 03, 29. 2, auditing existing customer support chatbot. 3, any key decisions made? None. 4, so let's see. Going to go ahead and provide those answers to the meeting assistant. So now it says, let me create a meeting note just to clarify a few things. How long did the meeting last? It was 1 hour. That's the main deliverable. And so now we can see that the agent saved a new note under processing, for meeting notes with Sarah Chen on today's date. So if we go back to the terminal and we go into the workspace and we go into the vault there, and let's see, meeting notes 29. We can see in our meeting notes that it captured our summary as well as some key decisions, and it left some areas for action items and follow-up. What's also interesting to note is the title, dated as we mentioned. It has a separate date field as well as a type for meeting notes. It noted who the attendees were, what the company was, and provided a bunch of tags for it as well. So now let's actually mention, I forgot that one of the action items is to regroup with the team, Sarah. So we're going to go ahead and follow up with the meeting assistant to see what happens next. And so it says it got it, it updated the action items, and there we go. If we go back to the terminal, we can see that a new action item was there. So the agent through the workspace has had file access to go ahead and read and write these files for us. The next time a new booking comes through, it will go ahead and research against all of the existing notes, compile those, and prep a meeting brief full of context from any other interactions I've had. So that's how Mastra Workspaces work. Let's review what we just did. We gave our agent the ability to write things, including meeting notes, research, and transcripts. On top of that, we also gave it the ability to search these files with a hybrid search of BM25 and vector search. Lastly, we introduced agent skills to codify how our research is done. If you want to build this yourself, the Mastra Workspace docs are online. I'll leave a link in the description below. I've also updated the original source code to include all of these changes so you can follow along. For more content like this, I write a weekly newsletter on building with AI. And if you're building agents and want help, I work with teams on this directly. Links are in the description. In the meantime, for more videos on AI agents, you can check out this playlist. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.